Alright, so in this video, I'm kind of just going to be talking about weapon DPS, like what weapons you should go for, as well as kind of comparing the big 4 or 5 swords that are like the top endgame weapons. So I hope you enjoy. So we're starting off here. First off, as you can see, I just had to take pictures on my computer screen. I couldn't get the screen recording on my computer to work, so this was like the best I could do. And if we're looking at the top 21 weapons, right? At the very bottom, we got Heavy Ice Devil Sword 2, Rainbow Sword U, all that, right? But if you notice number 15, Tsurugi 4, does 178 damage, 0.55. It's probably the most common sword in the game. This is the weapon I recommend everyone get. You're doing 320 DPS, which is really good. And the reason for this is I believe if you're doing under than 300 damage, most likely you're slowing down a boss fight. And if you're doing over 400 damage per second, you're speeding up a boss fight. And so what I mean by this is the Santa boss typically takes about 8 to 10 minutes on a normal kill. Well, if 2 of your 4 players have, let's say, Hell Sword, so they're doing significantly less damage, and 2 of your players have Tsurugi 4, they're going to probably kill it in maybe 14-15 minutes. Versus if 2 of your players have Nightmare Blade 3s, where you're doing significantly more DPS, they're going to kill it in maybe 7, 8, maybe even 6 minutes. Right? And so I think everyone's goal should be to get to 300 DPS. Now, the numbers that are shown here in the middle DPS column are at base. So keep in mind that things like shields and helmets give extra damage. So like if I scroll to the next page, we've got Rainbow Sword in rank 26. That's doing 290 DPS. However, with only 5 extra damage, that is increased to 300 damage per second, which almost any helmet will get you there. And so this is why I recommend making Rainbow Sword and Tsurugi 4, there's a long-term debate about which one's better. Tsurugi 4, unless you're going to make Devil Lean, is just better by principle. It's just more worth your time. But Rainbow Sword and up is kind of what I recommend using. Ice Devil Sword 2 also isn't too bad, but for how expensive it is, you could just make Tsurugi 4. But yeah, again, Rainbow Sword and up is kind of what you want to do for your first sword craft. And then once you get to the late game, then start looking at Tsurugi 5, Devil Lean, Dragon's Blade, all those. And if we look, Nightmare Blade 2 is at 167.55, it's 303. So you could also run Nightmare Blade 1, upgrade to Nightmare Blade 2. That just, again, is a lot of Vulcan. However, if you do plan on making Nightmare Blade 3 and even 4, then it is worth it. However, if you don't ever plan on making Nightmare Blade 3, then Nightmare Blade 2 is not worth it. As you're also seeing, Twin Sun U and Devil Spike U are both really good. Again, you're probably going to make Devil Lean if you're making those. But if you don't want to make, if for some reason you only want to get 100 Vulcan instead of 200 Vulcan, Twin Sun U still does really competitive damage. Again, it's only 3 less than Tsurugi 4. So that might be something to consider, but again, Tsurugi 4 is just so good as far as cost goes. It's not really worth it. All of the Blade X's, so these were added in the Halloween update, are really good. Doing high damage, higher than Tsurugi 4. That being said, you want to look at how they scale. The faster a weapon attacks, the better its damage scales as you add more. And so what I mean by this is if you look at all the Blade X's base damage, they're all between 329 and 332, right? So they're all basically 330. But if you go to where their damage stacks, right, the Evil Shadow Blade X, which is 233 damage, 0.7 seconds, 332 base damage, the highest of them all. At plus 50, it's only doing 404 DPS. Versus Blood Moon Soul Blade, which is 165.5 attack speed, is doing 330 DPS, one of the lowest, goes all the way up to 430 DPS when you've added to it. So just keep that in mind when you're crafting weapons, that the faster it attacks, the better it scales with additional damage, because it's dealing that additional damage faster. So now we're going to go down the list a little bit, right? Gem Dagger and Eclipse Fang, I've just added to the spreadsheet. They were added with the Halloween update. Ultimate Christmas Blade drops from Santa the Santa Boss. So if you get this, you really don't have to make a sword. Again, Tsurugi 4 is better, but 293 base isn't the worst. 0.65 has kind of bad scaling, but you're going to be doing 300 plus DPS no matter what. So it's not the worst, but I'd still recommend making something better at some point. However, if you get it, you can put off crafting a sword and focus solely on armor. Let's see, what have we not talked about? Ice Devil Sword. The new Ice Devil Swords are really good. If I go back over here, right? Heavy Ice Devil Sword 3, at base, does really respectable damage. Again, it attacks every 0.9 seconds, so its scaling is really bad. But if you're not using anything for extra damage, it's really good. So is Ice Devil Sword 3, right? It doesn't do as much base DPS, but because it attacks so fast, it has really good scaling. So if you want a weapon that attacks fast, like, and you don't want to worry about Rainbow Sword U or not having knockback like you do with Devil Wing, I would actually recommend Ice Devil Sword 3, as its damage can get up there relatively quickly. Let's go down. In 40th place, we've got Nightmare Blade, which is doing 136 every 0.55. That's a little under 250 DPS, right? So these 250 DPS weapons are okay, right? This is like where I'd put, they're better than Hell Sword, but you'd usually get them around the time someone might use Hell Sword if they get it from like a Queen 3 or a Master Key. These are like early game, pre-151 defense. And this is what I recommend using before you craft Tsurugi 4, Rainbow Sword, that sort of thing. And this is where we have a lot of the U weapons, right? Frost Moonblade U, Shadow Moonblade U. And so some progression, again, if you are opening Master Keys and get some of these, would be to get, say, Shadow Moonblade, upgrade it to Shadow Moonblade U, and then finally upgrade it to Shadow Moonblade X. Right, again, it doesn't have to be that one, but that's just something you could do if you wanted to, but it requires the comic book U, which is kind of expensive and rare. The Popsicle Shields are decent if you look at Rainbow Pops at 131. It's got 262 DPS base, but it scales really well because, again, it's a 0.5 attacking weapon. Anything else notable here? King Carrot 4. Just don't make King Carrot. It's cheap, if I remember correctly, but it attacks relatively slow and doesn't do a whole lot of damage. It's 280 base and its scaling isn't the best, so just skip out on those blades. The Hell Spikes are pretty good. Like, again, Hell Spike 3, which takes 10 Sky Stones, keep that in mind. You're still doing 318 damage base. So, like, if you just wanted one weapon for everything, like mining ores, killing everything, that'd be something you could go for. But keep in mind, it doesn't do knockback, so you'd still want something for knockback. Alright, let's keep moving down the list here. So now we're getting into base Hell Spike. We've got Hell Sword U, base Ice Devil Sword, which, again, Ice Devil Sword is very cheap. So for it to still be doing 230 DPS is really good. And at plus 50, so basically you throw an Evil Axe Shield and you're doing 300s of DPS, right? It's not bad at all. Evil Axe 2, we're looking down there, does bonus knockback. It's a good one to have, but again, it attacks super slow, so it has terrible scaling. Let's see. Hell Sword 2, again, decent, it's in the 200s. Anything probably 280 and below is like a mid-game pre-150 sword, but it's something you should try to get out of as soon as you can. Blade of the Emperor, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know what sword that is. It's something in the game, but it's not very good, so you really don't gotta worry about it. Giant Candy is decent, and here's the reason why. Well, first off, I believe it attacks every 0.5 seconds, not every 0.55. The spreadsheet might be wrong, but it does no knockback. You just buy it for gems or farm, I believe it is Ghost Arena that can drop it. And it has no knockbacks. If you just need a good no knockback weapon and you don't want to farm for the Hell Spike, this is really good. And I believe it does more damage than Hell Spike 2. No, it doesn't. I was wrong. I take it back. Hell Spike is up there at the top in place. I think that's 45. It's kind of cut off on the side, doing 119 every 0.5. But still, Giant Candy, it's good. It's really good for alt accounts if you just want something to help you DPS and you've got like a computer or something. You can just save up some gems, and then you got something that's doing decent damage. Going even further down the list, right now we're into weapons that are doing sub 200 DPS. Again, these are weapons that either have a niche use or very little use at all, right? Tsurugi 3 and Hell Sword are both weapons, right? Hell Sword there, Tsurugi 3 is up there. They're both weapons you're going to be using in kind of the mid to early game. That aren't bad, but you definitely want to upgrade them as fast as possible. Weapons like Chocolate Sword, Evil Axe, those both deal bonus knockback. Chocolate Sword is mostly just a big weapon, so it can hit its knockback more, whereas Evil Axe, even though it attacks, so it does big knockbacks, so they're kind of good for utility. Modena 4, if you want to spend the gems to get Modena 3 and farm Modenas, it does no knockback. It's another decent option for that. That's actually what I'm using right now, just because I'm tired of accidentally mining ores with Hellspike that I don't want to mine in places like Tomb of Makara. But everything here is kind of weak. And then as we go down, right, you've got like Tsurugi 2, Chocolate Pops, Dragon Blade 1. Right, nothing too crazy. Then we're going to scroll down to the very lowest. Now, as you can see, I didn't include every low tier sword because you're probably going to get something better than that faster. But in the early game, I recommend just shooting for Moonblade 1, 2, and 3, as well as any of the early Moonquips weapons when you're just starting out. As far as notable exceptions go, King's Mace, really good for knockback. There are multiple tiers of the Christmas tree that I do not have on here, but they range from early to middle game, but they don't do anything crazy apart from that one Santa one. Again, it's not the ultimate Santa Blade, it's just Santa Blade. So, yeah, this is kind of just all the weapon DPS. I'm going to link the Excel spreadsheet in the description of this video so you guys can find this. I'm going to have a couple more videos coming out about this, but the next section is going to be me comparing all of the big 5 swords, kind of big 4, because, you know, Dragon's Blade 3 and Dragon's Blade 4 are both the same weapon. But, yeah, I hope you enjoy that. Alright, so here I've got all the best swords in the game lined up on Desmos. So this would be Nightmare Blade 4, Ultimate Santa Blade, Nightmare Blade 3, Dragon's Blade 3, Devilween, and Tsurugi 4. Now, if we start with Tsurugi 4, it is at the bottom of the pack of the big, what is this, 5 swords, doing at base 341.8 damage per second, which can be rounded up to about 342 damage per second. Now, I've got some measurements here, so at plus about 50 damage, you're doing 432. At plus 73, so this one is important because this means you have 2 attack ring ones, Evil Axe Shield, and a helmet that gets plus 10 damage, like Pumpkin Hat or Robo Mask. You're up to 474. And then finally, at plus 101 damage, which I believe is max. It's either 101 or 103, so I just kept it at 101. You're getting up to 525. So what's important about all these swords is you can get past 500 DPS relatively easily, right? So now, like, if I turn them all on at max DPS, they're all going to be way above that. So we're going to take that sword off for now. And if we go back down to 0, if you'll notice, in very last place is Devilween at 350 DPS. Well, I think besides Tsurugi... Oh, I'm falling. Sorry, I can't record my computer screen, so it's going to be a little scuffed. That's okay. So, Tsurugi 4, I'm going to be honest, probably not worth the time to make it compared to everything else. So we're going to take it away from that. Now, Devilween is the cheapest of the big swords, as all it takes is Vulcan, which right now is extremely easy to get. However, at base, it is the weakest, only doing 350 damage. However, it attacks the fastest every half a second. And so what you'll notice is as we go up the graph, again, it is the black line, as we go up the graph, right here, at 50 bonus damage, it's already in second place. Right there. Even compared to Ultimate Santa Blade, right? So if I get rid of both of these, it's even better than Ultimate Santa Blade right there. And it stays in second place from about 50 defense all the way to max. So it's really good because for its price, you can get some really good damage if you're doing a DPS setup. Now, the other thing with Devilween is it has no knockback. So if you craft it, you're going to want a second sword to fall back to. However, that can easily just be Tsurugi 4 because it's again, easy to get and does good DPS. Again, that's the sword I think everyone should make at the start of the game. So yeah, Devilween scales really well, but at base is pretty weak in comparison. So now we're going to turn on... Oh, whoops. Let's keep that off. So now we're going to look at Dragon's Blade. This is a sword I have. And so if we look down here, Dragon's Blade is the blue one. It is in 3rd place for most damage at base. And oh, wrong one. I'm looking at purple. Sorry. It is in 4th place for most damage at base. And then as you go up, it slowly gets put more and more behind. Except for the Ultimate Sandal Blade, which, again, this is at way more extra damage than we can get. But eventually it beats Ultimate Sandal Blade. The reason for this is because it attacks so much slower. However, if you're the one tanking, so you don't have a lot of bonus damage on, it's a really good choice to pick, as you're not going to have bonus damage, which you don't need because it doesn't scale as well, but because it does more damage per hit, defense is not going to affect it quite as much as it will some other swords. That being said, Ultimate Sandal Blade is the best for that, for being the one tanking, because it does the most damage per hit, and its DPS is also really good. If you go back to the line 0, and we zoom way in, it's 370 base, whereas the other one is also 370 base. They're just, like, they're 0.2 damage per second off. Now, Dragon's Blade 4 is the best sword in the game by far. At base, it has the best DPS. And if we look, it maintains that top DPS for as high as you can get in the game, right? As we get to here where they meet, you need 115 bonus damage, which is unobtainable right now. That being said, both Santa Blade and Dragon's Blade 4 take 10 Sky Stones. So we're going to take them off because that is significantly more difficult than every other sword here. And so now we're just looking at what I consider to be the main big 3. That being Dragon's Blade, Dragon's Blade, Nightmare Blade 3, and Devilween. And as you'll see, Nightmare Blade 3, at the start they're all very close. It doesn't matter too much. You're getting very close. Nightmare Blade 3 scales a little bit better than Dragon's Blade, so they're getting here. And it's not until 35 bonus damage where Devilween starts to go ahead. So what I'm trying to get at here is all 3 of these swords are very, very close as far as damage goes. Like, choosing one over the other, you're not going to lose a whole lot. If you want the most bang for your buck, you're probably going to want to go Devilween. However, Devilween has no knockback, so it's not as good for general play. Whereas Dragon's Blade and Nightmare Blade 3 are really good for general play. Nightmare Blade 3 is slightly better as it attacks faster, but they're both really good. So if you want an endgame sword, I'd recommend any of these 3. The only difference being, right, that Dragon's Blade 3 does have that option to skyrocket to Dragon's Blade 4, which is by far the best sword in the game. So my conclusion to all this is that I recommend you make the Tsurugi 4 as quickly as possible, as it is usable for the entire game as far as damage goes, and it's not that hard to make. The only time you wouldn't is if you specifically want to make Nightmare Blade 3 or Devilween, then you would go for Rainbow Sword right off the rip, or Nightmare Blade 1 and 2 right at the start of the game. However, those are both a lot harder to achieve, so just keep that in mind. And even if you go for Tsurugi 4, you can still make any of the endgame swords later, as again, Tsurugi 4 is very cheap, and you're not going to need any of those endgame swords for a long time. For example, what I made Tsurugi 4, kept it for I think 4 years before I finally made Dragon's Blade 3. So again, just keep that in mind, and when you're looking at what weapons you want to make or that you get, keep in mind both their base damage as well as their attack speed to know how they scale. And also keep in mind that weapons that attack faster will always do more knockback compared to weapons that attack slower, because you're hitting your enemy more often, knocking them back more often, even if per hit they deal the same amount of knockback. I hope you enjoyed this long video on defense. The next one is going to be looking at bosses, and I don't think should be as long. I've already made a video like this before, but this one's going to include Makara as well as some just updated thoughts on the matter. So I hope you guys enjoy, and that'll be coming out soon.